How's it going, everybody? Alex coming at you here with another edition of Alex's Albums. I've had some really killer finds over the past month and a half or so, including two albums that were pretty high on my want list that I certainly did not think I'd be getting anytime soon. And I found them locally to boot, so that just makes it even better. So let's get into it. I don't have many to show you today, but I have some good ones. So the first album that I bought this year was Cramps' Songs the Lord Taught Us. Amazing record. I just got into the Cramps recently. I kind of slept on them for a while and hadn't really heard much of their stuff until around Halloween time, actually. I heard I Was a Teenage Werewolf, and I was like, what is this? So I started listening to this record a lot, and I found a copy. This is a 1980 UK press. Got a pretty good deal on it. Bought it from Permanent Records on Instagram. They always have cool stuff that they're posted for sale. And this record is just one of those records that you listen to it and you just feel like a badass. Like, I challenge you to listen to I Was a Teenage Werewolf and not instantly feel 10 times cooler. It just has that effect on you. And Poison Ivy, guitar player who's just not talked about very often, but has a really killer sound that I think really impacts this band. Like, they truly would not sound the same without Poison Ivy. A few days after that, I found this in a local store. That would be St. Vitus, Hollow's Victim, the second St. Vitus record. And one that, honestly, I kind of forgot existed. I feel like this one is not really talked about as much, certainly not talked about as much as the debut, or especially Born Too Late. This is a cool record. I wouldn't say it's my favorite St. Vitus album, but it's cool. It's got some cool tracks on it. It's a little, sorry for the glare there. The tracks are a little bit faster than you might think they would be from St. Vitus. It seems like there's a bit more of a punk influence on this record, but, you know, still with the guitar tones and everything that St. Vitus uses. It's a cool listen. Got a pretty good deal on it. You know, mostly bought it because it's an original SST pressing. If it was a reissue, I probably would have passed on it, just because I didn't know much about it. But, you know, with it being an original SST and pretty decent price on it, I scooped it. A couple other cool albums I found recently. The first Frost record, Frost Music. Local store in Rockford got in a big site collection, and this is one of the records that they had. Several records that I was interested in. And several that I had already, but this was one I did not have already. And I like the Frost. For those of you that don't know who the Frost is, they're from Detroit, and I would say that they're not punk like the Stooges or the MC5. They're more on the heavy psych side, but they're not even as hard as like a Frigid Pink type band. They're kind of in a middle ground. They have some hard rockin' tracks for sure, but they have some of that psych element, especially on this record. I have this and the second album, Rock and Roll Music. And I think Rock and Roll Music is the one that they're kind of known for. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. If I could pick any place in time to be for any music scene, it would be Detroit in the 60s and 70s, because you just had so much killer stuff coming out of there. You had the whole Motown movement and all those great recordings, and then basically the invention of punk. I'm going to say it, the invention of punk, MC5, Stooges. You know, without those two bands, you would not have had punk as it is. And then you had some great rock like Frost, Amboy Dukes, Bob Seger, the Detroit Wheels, Mitch Ryder, just so much killer stuff. And the Frost is a perfect example of that. I also got this, Budgie. If I were Britannia, I'd waive the rules. This is the last Tony Bourge or Bourgie, however you say his name, era budgie record that I needed. And it's a first press as far as I could tell. I would not say that it's my favorite budgie record, far from it. Uh, it's decent. There's a couple tracks on here that are pretty riffy, but by this point they were starting to get a little bit more mellow, which you can also hear on the follow up. I got this because it's an original and it's the last one I needed. And also there is a cool bonus that comes with this record, and I love stuff like this. In this record was a letter that I'm guessing the person who originally owned this record, it was addressed to them, and it's from the high school that he went to, Wheeling High School, and it talks about how he's near failing in a subject. He was absent, poor preparation of daily assignments. It's dated November 4th, 1977. I'm a sucker for stuff like that. I love it. I just think it adds to the story of the record, and it's it's like a snapshot of someone's life, even more so than the record itself. So I love stuff like this, and that was like a deal sealer for me, was being able to get that included in the record. And then the most recent record that I got was this right here. Stormtroopers of Death, Speak English or Die. Yeah. The title, a lot of the lyrics on here, not politically correct. Definitely, I don't even think this record would be released today. It definitely has some lyrics on there that would not fly today. But it's a crossover thrash classic. I mean, arguably one of, if not the first crossover record, because you had DRI doing crossover, but that wasn't until 87, and Suicidal Tendencies Joined the Army wasn't until 87. This was 85. So I would venture to say that this is the first crossover thrash record, which I love. I love crossover thrash. All the bands in that type of punk and thrash mixed together. I'm a sucker for it. And there's some really killer riffs on here. It's super heavy. It's an ass kicker for sure. But you have to look at the lyrics as they're not serious. They're trying to take the piss out of everybody and just offend as many people as possible. That's how you have to treat the lyrics on this album, because they are not tasteful, I would say. So the big reason making this video right here are these two records right here, which I've wanted for some time. Certainly didn't think I'd be getting anytime soon. But I walked into a local record store. This is probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And these two records were up on the wall. So I asked if the guy could get them down. He did. I looked at them very carefully because of how clean they are. Like they're super duper clean, especially the wax. So I wanted to make sure that they were originals in the first place and not reissues. Like that's how clean they are, especially the second one I'm going to show you. And they weren't cheap, they weren't super duper expensive. Like I'm sure some people would watch this and be like, "Oh, that's what you're talking about as being a grail. Come on now." But, for me, they are up there with the most expensive records that I have. And I had several records that I had been trying to sell, wasn't really getting any bites on them. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to trade those for these two records. And the trades covered most of the cost of these two records. So, that was another reason I went for it, is because I had those records to trade. And I gave up some good ones, but, I was planning on selling them anyway. So the first one is Hard Stuff, Bulletproof. Original 1972 pressing on Purple Records, UK pressing with the gatefold and the laminated cover. These two guys right here, Paul Hammond, John Ducan, were in Atomic Rooster. So this is kind of like an Atomic Rooster shoot-off band, but it's a lot more guitar-driven, a little bit heavier, It doesn't have the organ element in there. It's just more straight up hard rock versus being a prog record. And it's super killer record. Great guitar work from John Ducan on here. As always, you know, one of the unsung great 60s, 70s guitarists right there. I'm such a sucker for the underground late 60s, early 70s hard rock that this is a must. Like I had to get this one. And then the other one is Bubble Puppy, A Gathering of Promises, later known as Demian. They changed their name, nonetheless. This is on International Artists, original 69 U.S. pressing. This record in particular, very, very clean. The shop did ultrasonic clean the vinyl because I saw a couple little specks of dirt on there that I was concerned about, so they offered to ultrasonically clean it, and I was like, yeah, if I'm going to be spending this much money on a record, I need it to be as clean as possible. And it cleaned up so well. This thing plays beautifully, and you know, in particular, I was like checking the matrices to make sure this was an original because it's that clean. It's super duper clean. And you know, the lead single on this is Hot Smokin' Sassafras. That was their big hit. I think it made it up to like number 11 on the charts. And that's a killer psych song. It's so good. I would definitely recommend checking that out if you haven't ever heard it. And this record as a whole is really, really, really good late 60s psych. You know, they had two guitar players in the band rather than an organ player, which kind of gives them a unique sound. It's still psychedelic for sure, but without that organ, it's just kind of different in a way, a little bit more hard-edged without being like heavy hard-edged. So highly recommend this record. It's super killer. And yeah, this one and Hard Stuff, they'd been on my want list for a long time, but I did not think I'd be getting them anytime soon. And I'm super stoked to have them. So pretty quick video. That's about it today. If there's any questions you have about any of those records, feel free to ask. If there's anything else you're interested in seeing, I really do want to start trying to make some more content. It's just been, you know, tough to find time. Busy. But I'd really like to start doing some, you know, ranking albums from different artists and picking out like random albums from my collection and talking about them a little bit. You know, something to just get content out there and try to get more stuff out to up the views and whatnot. But anyway, as always, feel free to comment down below in the comments. Please subscribe if you have not already. It'd be really helping me out. And we'll see you next time.